I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of embarrassed to show this part of the process. It's not pretty, but if it's gonna help you guys get out of your head and start creating comics, start creating your manga, then it's gonna be worth it. So this is the part of the process that most people don't show, mainly because it's ugly. This is how I thumbnail. Welcome to Panels in Progress. I'm a little under the weather, but the show must go on. Today's episode, I'm just showing you guys my thought process and how I work on thumbnailing comics. This is the ugly phase before you get to the pretty pencils or the rough pencils, wherever you want to put it. So let's dive in. Alright, so you've been warned. This is the real. This is where it all begins. Every comic artist, every manga artist has to start or should start with this phase. And this is basically taking your script and turning it into thumbnails. And you can go about thumbnails multiple ways. You can try to figure out the panels, panel sizing, panel layouts, all while you're trying to get your ideas down onto paper, or you can get your ideas down on the paper and then try to worry about the panel sizes later. You can do it multiple different ways. I used to try to figure out how the page was going to look, how the characters were going to look inside the panels all at once and try to do it all at once, but it was extremely tedious and draining. So this time around, after I've completed John Brinkley's thumbnailing course, check it out, link in the description, shout out to my friend John, but I decided to try his method, but not digitally. I went to my sketchbook and I'm just making boxes and putting images in it. I'm going word for word. Whatever I see on the script, I'm putting just what it is down on paper. And it's super rough, but I'm just trying to get a general idea out. At this phase, take the pressure off yourself. You don't have to make anything pretty. The uglier it looks, it just means that you're at least figuring things out. So this first page is 4 panels. It's very simple. Establishing shot. I wanted some feet running, and I had to figure out what sound I wanted the character to make as they were running. So I decided on crunch, crunch, crunch because the sound of leaves crunching under your feet makes sense to me. A full body shot of our main character, Riss. And then I wanted a sound in the background. Whoo! So that way he looks back over his shoulder. On the second page, I had to mess around with the idea of him falling and tripping. So I zoomed in really close for the branch coming out and his foot catching the branch. The next panel is him falling. Now, before I added on this extra panel, I went to directly from him falling to him looking at his foot, and I felt like there needed to be a breakdown between that step, so I added him kind of sitting up and seeing his foot, or his ankle, I should say. So I added that breakdown in, and then I've got the close-up of his foot with the bug, him flicking the bug, and then him squinting his eyes and seeing something, which I think sets up the page turn idea pretty well. On the side here, so on one side of this page, you can see that I did my first initial pass, and then when I came back and tried to elaborate or rethink how I wanted things to look, I tried to change the angles of how the camera is set up. And this is not going to be the final example. This is just an idea of how I want things to look. Further elaboration, maybe some sound effects, and then of course I decided to change the angle of him looking at his foot. Now, I don't know why. I think we all do this to ourselves as we make comics. We torture ourselves knowing damn well we can't draw half the things that we want to draw. But it does allow us to challenge ourselves. And feet and hands, this is going to be a very feet and hand heavy comic, so that means I need to draw feet and hands. And luckily I have this little character called a Sticky Bones. You guys don't have to buy this thing, but I do find it useful for sometimes I need to visualize what is in my head, and not sometimes, yes, acting it out, you can get the idea of what you want to see, but it is also nice to have a character that you can manipulate and kind of move the camera around and see the perfect angle. And for that, Sticky Bones is really helpful. So third page is more just kind of moment to moment action, him picking at his foot, pulling that little leg off, and then it's snapping, and then of course him reacting before the actual action happens. The worm the bug is squirming in his foot. Now, I really struggled with this part because I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to set up the camera, and I'm still not quite sure how I want to set up the camera. But the one thing I am sure about is this bottom action of him stomping his foot, trying to kill this bug that is in his foot. Fifth page, I wanted a low angle dynamic shot of looking up at his body, seeing the bug move up his body. And then I had this idea that he's not just gonna let this thing happen to him. So I have this idea of him punching his body, but I'm not sure exactly how I'm gonna portray this in the comic. So right now it's just an idea, and I'll just figure it out later. And then I have him patting or smacking his body, so that way he's still trying to stop it from coming up his body. This is body horror. Maybe I should have put a warning at the beginning of this, but I said these things were going to be ugly, so I guess that's warning enough. The final page, the payoff of the whole story, is this bug exploding out of his chest and attacking him. I drew the angle a couple different ways. The reaction of Riss screaming, and then this chomp as it grabs his whole head. I can't decide if I want the monster to grab his face or his whole head, so I might mess around with that. And then another struggle point that I'm having is this last section where I zoom the camera completely out and you see this creature devouring our character, and then the last panel is his hand hitting the floor, which signifies the end. And I haven't really decided if that's enough, but for now it's enough. So with the roughs from this point, I'm gonna pull out some loose paper and really try to start thinking about how I want the panels to flow and lay out. I'm still gonna keep it super rough, not a lot of detail, just enough so that way I understand what's going on. Like I said, it's not gonna be pretty, but this is how you start to bring your script to life as you work on those ideas. So this is the part where you literally are putting a puzzle piece together. You're taking all your rough ideas and you're trying to cram them into a page that makes cohesive sense. As you can see, I have my sketchbook on one side, I've got some loose leaf computer paper on the other side, and I've got my script just for reference, because sometimes when you're making thumbnails, your little sketches aren't going to even make sense to you. But in the vein of keeping everything super rough, I started at page 1. Page 1, I had already thought about the layout for the panels. So page 1 was super easy. I knew that I wanted this long panel in order to build those layers for the forest or woods that I needed. And then I decided 3 panels on the side, a small panel, a medium size panel, and then another small panel. So page 1 was really easy to do. page 2 came a little kind of easy as well, because I already knew exactly how the framing should work and I knew how many panels I wanted to do. So while I'm thinking about the page layout, I'm also considering the important panels. Which panel deserves more room to breathe? Which panel should be quick and move you through? So that's why I have an arrangement of panels the way that I chose. The third page was only 4 simple panels. This was action to action, so I easily knew that I only needed 4 panels, and with this, instead of doing 4 equal sized boxes, I decided to go wide and do long panels, and I think that would give me space to show exactly what I wanted to show in these panels. So page 3, super easy to lay out, 4 long boxes, and we're off to the races. Page 4, I did start to have some struggles because I haven't really figured out how I want this sequence to go. But I knew that I needed more space for that last panel, which is him stomping his foot trying to kill that bug. So I basically worked backwards on this one. I started with the most important panel, then the second, and then the other 2 just kind of fit in perfectly. Now, the fifth page I spent the most time on. I really struggled with this one from a design perspective, from a clarity point of view. I wasn't sure how I wanted to portray this action. And as you can see, I am going over and over the idea, just trying to make it make sense to myself as well as what I wanted to show. So in this particular scene, I had this idea of this shot of a dynamic angle of this bug squirming its way up his body, and then him like hitting his leg and hitting himself, trying to kill this bug, trying to stop this bug from moving up his body. But what I was struggling with was getting the angle down and showing where the bug was, but also showing the character, and then trying to decide, like, does this make sense as far as like the fist? Should I show his fist, like an anticipation shot? I did want to show him punching himself because I felt like that part was important. Like, if something is crawling inside of your body, you're not going to just take it. You're not going to just let it happen. You're going to try and stop it. And I felt like punching and hitting himself made sense, but I couldn't understand the angle of that. And I think once I get more space outside of the thumbnail, I'm going to like really break this panel down to make it make sense more. But for now, I just put the idea down, and then I needed a shot of him showing the bug coming up to like his navel and up his chest, because on the next page is that chest burst. So I had to keep that in mind. And I was like I said, I was really struggling with this. Obviously in the time lapse it seems like I was just going, but there was multiple times where I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing with this panel. So with that in effect, I kind of got this idea of, why don't I go big, like just show him really big with the bug at his stomach level, and then I could throw boxes around. And ultimately I decided, okay, let's do a close-up as the bug is squirming up his leg towards his knee, because that gives context for where the bug is. And then the second one is him hitting himself, fast motions. And then I wanted to show another close-up of the bug moving under his skin, which would pan into him opening up his shirt. So that was page 5. Really struggled with that. Page 6 wasn't as bad. I knew that the biggest panel needed to be him with the bug about to attack. I knew I needed the face reaction, and I know I needed that side shot of his face or head being grabbed, and then the last panel. So the last panel really came together quite quickly. Alright, so I thought that I was done with the thumbnails, the rough digitals, and things like that, and I took my own advice and sent out my work to the mastermind group that I was a part of earlier last year, and then the John Brinkley Discord group, and I waited for feedback. Now, I didn't get much, but I did get some, and when I got that feedback, when I first got it, it was a lot. I guess how I'm interpreting this is that feedback should be taken with a grain of salt. No one knows your story like you do. And in this instance, I basically just sent the story, the rough digitals, and I wanted to know if the story idea was flowing, and I explained the overall concept of the comic, the short story. And the feedback I got was pretty detailed. Page 5 was, there were some problems understanding what was going on in the scene, which I validate. Page 6, pages 3 and 4 were redundant, cut what out. Now, at first when I took this, I was like, when I got this feedback, I was like, you're right, I should change this. But as I kind of thought on it, sat on it for a little bit, I decided I'm going to take some of the feedback and I'm going to leave some of the others, because at the end of the day, this is my story. So what I decided to do was go back through the digital comic and figure out, like, is it valid to cut these things? And I think that this is where you have to listen to yourself. And even if you're unsure, sometimes you have to go against the grain. You have to try things that maybe other people wouldn't do. But like I said, only you know the entire idea of your story. So with that in mind, I decided I'm going to keep the page set up because I think it's necessary. And I'm going to keep the breakdown of page 2 of that action where he is following and trying to get into a situation where he can check out his foot. The parasite and how it shows up, I think it's fine. I might hint at it a little bit more, but I think I'm going to keep that as is. The biggest changes that I did make was that he suggested that the main character has a downward spiral, that basically this character shows up, he immediately finds this parasite, and then next thing you know, he's dying, or getting attacked and then dying. And he said that it'd be good to add in a beat where he thinks that he killed it or he overcame it. He suggested 3 times, but like I said, this is a short story, this is a short comic. I am trying to practice the art of storytelling, practice the art of comic telling. And so I did think maybe adding in 1 page of him finding, like, trying to kill the parasite and thinking that he won could work. So I forced a page in between page 4 and page 5, and I made it so that we have him, Riss, looking at his foot, finding that the monster's gone, and then lo and behold, he feels a sharp pain. So first you get the reaction, then you get him doubling over, seeing the pain, seeing that the parasite has actually moved from the bottom of his foot to his calf muscle, the terrified expression, and then I go back into page 6 where I did redesign page 6 to make it better. I was really in love with the design that I had for page 5, or the original page 6, but now with this new direction I needed to basically scrap that and I kept parts of it, but I needed to show that he was actually hitting himself, because I wanted to do it in all one panel of him punching himself, but it wasn't working, and I kind of felt that it wasn't working. So I just went ahead and broke down him hitting himself in different parts of his body. And then for the final page, which became page 7, I changed the angle from him getting attacked to him, now he's on his back, you know, kind of sprawled out, getting attacked, and then you go to the hand that closes it out. And I think this is good. I also got the suggestion to check out a manga called Manhole, which has some body horror and a parasite in it, and I kind of scrolled through it, and it does look like something I could use, because I was trying to figure out how I'm going to portray that something is moving underneath the skin. So that's that. From this point on, I'm going to do another pass on the digital roughs, basically using my Sticky Bones characters to get the angles that I want, take some pictures, and try to frame it up, make it look nice, and really nail down the details of how I want the form to be shown in the different panel angles. And then it's going to be me actually adding in the details for the pencil layer of the comic and putting in the shadows. So not really sure if I'm going to clip this a part of my overall digital thumbnail video, which I probably will. So this is a series of me making a comic from start to finish, my thought process behind the comic making process. And if you're interested in any of that, make sure you subscribe and stay tuned, because next is going to be how I break down my penciling phase for the next part of this comic. So if you guys let me know in the comment section below, have you ever gotten some feedback or some criticism on your idea, and how did you take it? Did you try to incorporate those feedbacks and criticisms, or did you just scrap it and go on with your original plan? Let me know in the comment section below, and until next time, let's make some progress.